What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, or I guess welcome back to me. I took a bit of a hiatus, but I've been working on this newest custom. We've gotten these clone troopers from Hasbro recently, from Jedi Fallen Order. And of course, they're clone commanders Jaro Tapal, but with no Jaro Tapal to be seen or any kind of rumor or anything like that, I've kind of decided to make one myself. And so I use this Zeb body, of course, as a base. I use that base to create this. This is what I've been working on for over a month now. And I've really just tried to take my time building this. In the past, when I make custom action figures, I kind of just wing it and hope for the best. But with this one, I really wanted to take everything that I've learned and try to put it into one figure. Rather than just take the figure and post pictures on Instagram, I decided that I should probably make a video showing over exactly what I went through. So throughout this video, I'm gonna be saying a lot of things that end up changing. I've messed around with a lot of different parts and different techniques to try to get the most accurate game version I could make. And so as you can see, I got the hair and everything and the cloth, but I'll just go over in this video everything that I've done to get to this result. So hopefully if you're looking to make one of these yourself, you'll find this video useful. And if not, maybe you'll learn something about making custom action figures through all the pain I had to go through to make this guy. All right, so let's get started. I'm using these two figures to make my custom. Let me show you what I got. Well, I'm not using those, I'm using these. Let me break down my plan here. This Mace Windu has a separate skirt piece and a separate shirt part. I guess we'll just call it that. So I bought another Mace Windu and I tore this off. This piece is just glued at the bottom. There's some like T-pegs that peg in and glue. So, and then this piece connects at the waist. So I separated this. I dremeled out this inside piece just to give me more room because his waist is bigger than Mace Windu's, of course. The plan is I'm gonna probably have to Dremel this down still. I haven't even test fitted this yet. But yeah, I mean, if it's on there now, I still might Dremel down around the edge. You're not gonna see that part, so I might Dremel down around the edge to get this to fit a little bit better. Because if you see, it's starting to kind of rip right there, but that's good for that. I've destroyed this Zeb, not destroyed, I broke it down to every piece. So the legs are pretty much stock. I'm gonna have to sand these two pieces down later. I'm just gonna try to dye the legs black and then probably paint them over that, just so I don't have any paint rub. This is the chest piece. It had this part just glued on there. It was really hard to get off. So I ended up taking my X-Acto knife and just heating it up and just kind of like slicing in there. And eventually you just get this. You can see where it's glued on the front and the back. And then here it's hollow, which is kind of weird. But you can see the leftover glue for where it's glued on it. And this part's gonna be covered with the tunic. So this Mace Windu part fits like that. So I mean, if I just plug this in, it'd be pretty close, I think. But if you stretch it, this material is super flexible. If you stretch this front part, you can get it down. You want it to almost where that part is. So I think what I'm gonna end up doing is just stretching it and gluing it and holding it there until the glue has a bunch of time to dry. And maybe that'll hold it down far enough. There's that hole there, but I mean, I'm holding it stretched, and then, this piece is just gonna come over like that. So I mean, anything that's down there is gonna be covered. I'm gonna end up cutting this piece though, around the front to match kind of the look of the game. Zeb breaks down. Here's this part of his foot. I'm gonna keep this the same. I'm not gonna do anything to this. And the head, well, the head, I'm gonna sculpt the beard. I got this Zeb for like $20 on eBay because it didn't have its gun, and also its face is a little dinged up. And like the back of the head, I don't know what that is. It's kind of gross. But I'm gonna repaint that or I'm just gonna touch up paint that part probably. In the game he has a full beard too, so I'll probably try to sculpt something and repaint the beard. I'll do that last. That's maybe my least favorite part. Okay, next, the shoulder pads. These don't match the game really well, but I think these will be fine. So they just pried off, and you can see where they're glued. And I snipped around where the pegs were to so they can fit flush later. I was gonna do a whole cloth thing here, but I'm starting to rethink that. I'm probably just gonna end up painting this. The gauntlets also popped off. That was probably the easiest part to pop off. As soon as you got them hot, they wanted to peel away because you can just pop it like that. And then I'm going to redo these. I'm thinking about 3D printing like my own gauntlet and then just using some black elastic band or something, a thick one, to kind of just strap it on there. It'll be more movable, but my only worry with this guy is in the game, his gauntlets go up pretty, it's like a glove, so it goes up pretty high. But with the articulation here, if I try to sculpt anything, it's just gonna chip it away. So I'm thinking the elastic band will be my best bet there, just so I'll have that flexibility still. All right, did I miss anything? Hands are okay. I'm probably gonna sculpt something on the back. The hands, I'm just gonna try to dye them black. So the hands and the legs. But what I'm doing right now, I was testing sewing to try to make the sleeves. Didn't go well, so I'm probably just gonna paint those. I'll probably end up sewing a skirt piece for him so I don't waste what I spent on materials. I'm gonna try to dye these blue. In the game, they're kind of like a dark blue. I have a light blue dye that I bought for a different project, and I'm gonna see if that'll work for these. I'll show you how I dye my figures, just a quick little tutorial, but that's what I'm working on right now. So this is just a quick overview on how to dye action figures. I'd leave it on low heat the entire time. I'm using about half of this container. If I was going to do this again, I would use either a more teal color or less of this dye. Half is a little bit too much for this. Just stir it all together and drop the parts in. You want to leave the parts for usually like 30 minutes. In this case, I would have left this in here for like 30 seconds to get the color I want. So I'm not even lying when I say this set in the dye for like maybe a minute and came out this dark. If you dye your figure, you might want to use a different type of dye. I don't know if they make lighter or more like teal, but this came out darker than I wanted, but I mean, it's fine. It'll work. I took the legs and I dremeled around the waist so that this bottom part will sit on there easier. I might glue this together because whenever I put this on there, it stretches, but it stretches the front where it just like, it doesn't look right. So I might think of a way to like glue that and reinforce it with something so it stays together. Also, I dremeled down the knees and the thighs. Let's see. So this guy, he has knee pads and he has these thigh tee looking things. And he has these parts. So those bottom parts I just pulled off. I heated it up and you can pull the strap around the back and just pop it off. The knee pads I just grinded down with this bit on the Dremel. I just went around and had it match up. I didn't get the straps back here, but that's okay. And then the tees I just ground down. You can see I might need to do some more sanding there to get that smooth. But what I'm gonna do now, so the black parts are like, his hands and his legs are black. I'm gonna end up wrapping these. I bought some like thin leather strips I'm just gonna wrap these with the leather like the fake leather strips. So it kind of looks like the game and I don't have to paint or anything. But I'm throwing this in these hands in some black dye. I'm gonna see how that comes out. So here's the results of the black dye. You can see the legs, the bottom part of the legs actually turned out okay. It's more of a flexible plastic, so I think the dye sticks a little bit better. Top part looks pretty bad, and these hands look kind of bad because I didn't remove all the paint. If you remove all the paint, I think it would turn out better. I'm just gonna prime it with this primer, the Mr. Surfacer. All right, let me show you where I'm at. So I painted this upper chest piece, this color, and now I'm gonna try to glue this tunic piece on. I just marked the middle of the chest piece there, and then the tunic's just wherever that line is the middle. I'm going to try to glue that down where the middles meet, and then once that glue dries, I'll heat it up and stretch it over. We're gonna see if that'll work, hopefully. So far all I've done is I've dyed these pieces. I did glue behind here so that whenever I put it on him, it's a little too small. I don't want it to separate. So I glued those two pieces. I'm painting the arms currently and these shoulder pieces. I'm painting those right now white. I sanded them down so they're pretty smooth. And then I painted them black. And then I'm going to try to keep the paint rub to a minimum. So I just put a gloss clear coat, and hopefully that will be durable enough to keep the paint rub down. I'll go back over when that gloss coat dries with this matte coat. And hopefully that'll be durable enough to keep it from rubbing on the knees and the thighs. So right now the plan is let everything dry, but while that dries, I'm gonna glue this on and then show you what I got. All right, this is what I have so far. I got this piece on and I cut, you can see where I cut, but I moved the shoulders in too, but I cut a little bib out because that piece, I cut it to look more like the game, which is just this, but bigger. So I used some tape and made a template of this, the front and the back. Use that, and I used my X-Acto knife to cut it out, front and back. And also I dremeled out to make it a little bit thinner. But I cut that piece out because it was coming around his neck and it was making it too bulky and this wouldn't go on right. But now it goes on almost perfectly. There's a little gap in there, but I mean, that's fine. I still gotta do the head. I'm putting that off, and I gotta paint everything white. I sanded these down. These are his shoulder pads. Hang on, let me get the figure. See how it has like this T? I didn't want that. I was gonna put a water slide on them, so I want them to be smooth. So I just took my Dremel and dremeled it and then hand sanded it all smooth. There's a few like areas where it got messed up, but I'm just gonna add weathering there and it'll match in. This piece, I've repainted the seam. So I just gotta paint that brown. Okay, I'm back with a quick update. So these legs, every time I bent them, you can see those pegs are in there really tight and they're perfectly flush with the back. So every time I bend them, they were just rubbing the paint off that I had on. And I tried doing a clear coat and that worked pretty well. Not perfect though, so it's still chipping on that joint. And with these knees, the skirt piece is still going to like come down. You're still gonna see the knees. So I need those to stay black. So I decided just to take it apart and sand it down. Is it the, yeah. So I just took, you can see the peg holes there. And it was like, these are kind of weird pegs. They're bigger on one side, smaller on the other. So they were sitting in there. I just heated up the legs with some hot water and took this, I just have this piece and it has this long metal part. And I just pushed the pin through when it was really hot and it just popped out the other side. If you don't have this, you can use like just really any thin metal or like a screwdriver or something like that. Just be careful, you don't want to damage the pin. So these now though, after I took these out and I dremeled around, so they're way smaller than they were before. It's kind of hard to tell since I don't have a reference, but trust me, they're way smaller now than they were before. And you can see in there, sort of, but there's like plenty of room in there for the knee to bend. Let me turn the light real quick. Okay, that'll be better. Sorry if it's too bright, but there's plenty of room down in there now for these to bend and not rub anything. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna heat these back up, put them back together, and then I'll do a test bends to make sure that there's not gonna be any rub. But these are just held in with the pins, and the pins provide the articulation. So they don't have to like be filling the area, you know? So it should be fine. I'm gonna put it back together though and make sure that it's still stiff and he'll be able to stand. These ankle joints need it too. You can see where they're rubbing. But I'm gonna cover those with, well, I'll show you whenever I get to that point. But the Jaro Tapal has like ankle wraps. And so I'm probably gonna cover from that hole down. So from that green piece down to like right there, I'll cover with the ankle wraps, and that should just cover that joint, so I don't need to really worry about it. Okay, quick update before I go to prime. These knees, when I put them back together, that material lost in there really kept it from like ratcheting or anything, so it was pretty loose. So what I did is I took this clear nail polish and I coated this knee, the inside. You can see where it's shiny. That's clear nail polish. I painted on there. And then inside the leg, I put some nail polish down in there. So, I mean, that made it definitely tighter. I think if I put this back together and painted it, it would be able to stand. But I still want it a little bit tighter. So I'm gonna take this knee back apart and redo it. This arm, I'm gonna repaint them. I don't like the color, and the paint rub's driving me crazy. Let's just use the torso. I've taken it apart too. You see how yellow that is compared to like the more beige? I'm just gonna repaint it. This piece, I left it on there long enough that it stretched out, so it's pretty easy to put back on. Another thing is that whenever I glued it on, since I didn't take away any of that paint, it was just gluing to the paint, so it came off super easily. So I'm gonna sand it down before I glue it next time. That'll be a better move. So right now, put another coat of nail polish on that joint and inside. Dremel down this joint. I'm just gonna use like a thin or like a kind of a small Dremel and just take my time and go around it. So that way it's rough, it'll be rough and it'll be a little bit more shallow. So maybe it won't chip apart when it goes in there. And then I'm gonna Dremel out this a little bit, just so whenever I plug it in, it doesn't rub the paint up here around this part. So that's the plan right now. I'm waiting on some decals. The white parts of the armor, I used some cheap acrylic paint, and it, of course, bubbled and peeled immediately when I put clear coat on it. So don't do that, use good paint. And hopefully, next video, everything will be primed. I wanted to show off my dremeling. You can see this arm joint, whenever it bends, the part that's scraping the paint off is down in there. So you want there to be a gap there. So when I articulate it, there's that gap stays there the whole time. All I did was I kind of just went with my Dremel back and forth and made it flush with this arm. I just followed it along and just kept dremeling and made sure it was at or below that level. This one's the same way. There's that gap. This one did get a little looser, but I mean, it's still, like, it's gonna be fine. It's not holding that much weight in the hand. Like, I still have to apply a bit of pressure to get it to bend. These shoulders, I tried to take the smallest Dremel bit I had and get in there and do the same, but it was just dragging. I don't have one small enough to really get it. So I kind of just screwed it up But I mean, at least since it's scraped off, hopefully the paint will stick better to that. Okay, so update on where I'm at. I've painted all of these parts from like his upper torso and stuff. I used a mixture of, it was a little bit of this and just like just a tad bit of this green. You could probably use any dark green, and then a ton of white. So I think my ratio was 5:1. So 5:1, like that. Also added a little bit of brown, just like the smallest amount to try to get a little bit darker. But I think it turned out okay. I had to do like a bunch of coats and I messed up. I had to strip away the paint, do it multiple times. But these parts I'm pretty excited about. There's no real rub. I think I missed clear coating right there, but there's no real rub anywhere when I flex it. Down here a little bit, but that's gonna be mostly covered with the band I'm gonna put on. Yeah, all of these are pretty clean. The only part that's rubbing now is this inside part, but there's no way to clean that without taking it completely apart. Okay, and then I painted these black. I've sanded down all these joints, so there's no rub in there. Also had to, on this leg, come through and sand around where the knee touches because there's rubbing all of that inside part, so now it doesn't rub. And then they're pretty tight still with the nail polish. The only thing that's bugging me about these, it's gonna be covered, but it's rubbing right there. And then if I move it around too much, it rubs in there. All right, and then I did these parts white. So I think I showed that I sanded all these down and then I trimmed this up. And I painted them white and it looked pretty good, just white. But then, let me see if I can show it on this. You see how there's like damage on his armor? And then on the shoulders too, there's damage. So I couldn't just leave it white. It looked weird because there's damage and then there's like just no weathering. So I weathered it a bit. All I did for that is I just dry brushed on black around the edges and then took just like a little bit of black paint on a thin brush and like swiped a couple of places. I did that on this too, just dry brushing, then swiped. Also, I mixed up a little brown paint with water and just put it on a bigger brush than this, and I just held this piece up and just kind of went like that. And all that did was like put little drops of brown on it. And so it looks more natural that way. It looks like dirt and stuff has gotten all over his armor bits. I ordered these decals. One of his, I think his left arm has a Jedi logo on it. These are the Obi-Wan ones, but they'll work out fine. That's the seller on eBay if you want to go buy these. I bought these before. They worked out pretty good. I gave away the rest of them without, I shouldn't give stuff away, but I gave it away, and so I had to order them again. I think it was like $10 or $8 plus shipping for this thing. So not too bad of a price. So the head I kind of fixed his beard. So Jaro Tapal has like a full beard going across. It's all about the same length. Kind of like just on his chin. But Zeb has like the sideburns and like goatee. So there's a gap on both sides. I don't know why there's like a seam line there, but there's a gap on both sides. So all I did to achieve this is I cut his goatee like that far down, you can see. And I just cut that in half. So I cut it here and I cut it up like in half. And then just glued that to connect it all. It's kind of hard to tell on the camera. But like these pieces are just his goatee glued right here. So I just use that to fill it in. And then there's a little bit of a gap. So I just put some sculpt. This epoxy sculpt. I just put a little bit in there. I'm gonna repaint the beard anyways, so I just put a little bit in there and hopefully it looks okay. He also has a ponytail on the back that I haven't gotten to yet. So I was trying to figure out how to do that. And then I'm figured I just take that one. So I'm gonna have to take her hairpiece off. I ordered another one of these. They were on sale for like the Cyber Monday sale, so I just ordered another one. And I'm gonna cut her hairpiece out and then probably take that hair, glue it on. I don't know, I'm gonna mess with it and I'll show you what I come up with. But mostly just the ponytail I need on here. And then that'll be pretty accurate. Last thing I've done so far is that same epoxy sculpt. I just put it on the back of the hands. I just kind of place it on there and like flatten it out. And then took my X-Acto knife and cut it into a square. But I mean, that's pretty soft, like it's not coming off. And it's dried for 2 days now, so I'm gonna sand that down where it's smooth. I know it looks kind of rough right now, but that's the back of the hand, so not too worried about it. If you've never done water slides, you pretty much just cut these out, dunk it in some water for like 10-15 seconds, pull it out of the water, and then there's a top sticker piece. It's like the shiny part and this paper backing. You just slide the sticker piece off and then slide it onto this. Okay, another quick update before I glue this. I dremeled down where it's gonna glue. Just because last time when I glued this, you can see on the inside, it just stuck to the paint. It didn't stick to the figure, and I didn't think about that, but dremeled that down. Also, I put it back together and had one spot where it scraped. I don't know how I even did that, but of course it did it. So I guess I'm gonna touch up that too, which is fine because I need to clear coat this anyways. It's really glossy, and I'm gonna have to clear coat this one after I paint the belt. So I just wanted to show that before I glue it. All right, time for a big update. So I glued this vest piece on, and then I was gonna put this piece on. I painted that white, just weathered it a little bit and put a gloss coat on top. It looked fine, so I cut up around the edges so that this would set as flat as possible because I dremeled out the inside, but I didn't want to go too far. But then Skylu 3D Designs on Instagram, I follow his Patreon, and he made this Obi-Wan armor upgrade kit for like the Clone Wars Obi-Wan. And so I just took this and cut out the neck, and this looks way more accurate to the game. So I had to glue all the pieces I cut back on there. And when this covers it, you're only gonna see that part, and it's not really that noticeable. So I'm not too worried about it, but I glued it back on so that you could cover some of that. So this looks way better. So I think I'm just gonna sculpt a net line and then paint it and glue this on because that looks way closer to the actual game. I glued this on there, it's already done, and this was done, but that's trash now. This other one with the water slide, it's just so small. Oh, there it goes. It's just so small that I don't really care about it. There it goes off. It stuck well. If I would have clear coated it, it wouldn't come off like that, but I asked my wife to cut one out for me on the Cricut that's way bigger, that it should look more accurate to the game. So I'm gonna try this one out. It's brighter red too, which is more accurate, so it should work out way better. So I'm gonna try to put that on there, and hopefully that looks better. I just sculpted these with the epoxy sculpt, painted them white, and then went around the edges, painted it black, so it looks like it's all uniform. The head, so I just painted it dark gray, the beard and the hair, and then went over and dry brushed it with light gray. And I painted that bottom part brown. So it looks pretty good, I think. I mean, the back of the head looks way better than not having it. This bottom part too, I painted the whole thing brown where it's supposed to be brown. I just gotta add the fabric in between these gaps and that should be done. For the wrist, I was gonna use this piece of elastic that I bought at Walmart. I bought a whole bunch of it and I was just gonna wrap it around, but it's so thick that it doesn't look right. So I didn't know what to do. So I have a pair of gym shorts that I don't wear anymore that I got paint on and stuff. I'm thinking about just cutting some fabric off of these because it's still stretchy. and it should wrap around a lot flatter around the wrist. After I got those together, I kind of just got looking at it and I was like, these look kind of bad. Like the fabric just wasn't laying right, and it was stretching when I put when I bent the arms. So I sculpted on the glove. And so like I still have all the articulation and everything. I just sculpted around. But you can see like it's already starting to crack. It cracked because when you put the end in, you had to heat it up every time. And so what I did to hopefully keep it from cracking later is I'm just gonna drill out that hole a little bit so it just kind of pops on, because you can see this has like the mushroom head, and so it'll still grab on in there. With the hand, it just doesn't look right yet. It needs a little bit of like a ridge there. So I'm gonna try to sculpt that on. I took the other one and I glued this wire on. I just had this laying around from a different project. And I'm gonna try to sculpt on top of that, and maybe the wire will give it some strength. So if it gets hit or something when I'm bending the hand, it won't just chip away. But I'm gonna put that on there and then I'm gonna sculpt up and see if I can get the hand to sit and look like an actual glove. But we'll see where we get. So I sculpted around the neck. You can see in there's some sculpt. And now I sanded the thing and primed it. There is still like a scratch there and stuff. I'll need to sand a little bit more. But so this should set perfectly on there now. And like it doesn't get in the way of articulation or anything. So it still all works pretty good. I also sculpted these down so that there's more like a lip there, so the hands kind of pop in. They pop in and it looks more like a glove. It looks pretty bad right now because I tried to sculpt these pieces, the armor bits, onto it, and it just looked awful. So I finally just gave in and 3D modeled them and printed them. I printed a bunch in different orientations, try to get the best print because it's kind of thin in some parts. But you can see there's like some weird geometry there. There's like a cut on the corners, a cut across the top, cuts on the sides. So I was having a hard time sculpting that. So I just 3D modeled it and printed it, and I'm just gonna glue it on. And I think it looks pretty good. When I glue it on, I'll probably sculpt around so you don't see any seams or anything, and then try to touch up the parts I messed up. So that's what I'm working on now. Also, this sticker turned out pretty good, or really good. I didn't get it perfectly straight on there, but the whole shoulder pad's kind of lopsided. So I got it on there as best as I could. I also went ahead and cut there so it looks like the scratch continues through. I thought that was probably the best way to take care of that. I'll compare it to the old one. So I will do these parts and then I will probably prime it and show you what it looks like. Hopefully this is one of my last updates. So I think the last video I showed this sculpted, I just painted it black and repainted this top part. I went ahead and repainted the whole thing, just like 1 or 2 light coats, just to try to get the color more uniform. I noticed some parts when they dried were a little bit different than others. But also, before I repainted, I sanded down there a little bit because there was rub on the arm right here against that spot. So I sanded that a bit. Put this back together, the legs. I had to sand the butt down. I'll get to that in a second. I had to do another couple black coats. So I'm gonna have to clear coat that. And the feet are glossy, which I wanna clear coat that to bring down the gloss. But I mean, there's no real rub anywhere. From here up will be covered, so I'm not really too worried about the inner leg or anything, but still, it's not really rubbing anywhere. I made this to go over. So my seam line's pretty bad. I'm not really good at sewing, but I just did this pretty quick. That's gonna go over like that. And then this piece will just cover everything. So just kind of to fill in the gaps where that's gonna be and everything. I just made that quick. I put a little bit of fabric glue on the bottom to try to keep it from peeling more than it already has. The only thing I got left to do in the legs is put this on, of course. But he also has leather straps, which is why I just left this alone for now. Is I bought this like cord. I'm just gonna glue that on and wrap it around his legs all the way from here to the top. It's gonna get rid of that articulation down there. But I mean, it's not really a point that's necessary. You still have the ankles and then the knees and the swivel up here. So I don't think I'm losing much with that. All of these pieces turned out pretty good. I hit them with a gloss coat and weathered them, of course. You can kind of see. I tried to keep it light with the weathering. I didn't want to make it look super dirty or anything. But I had a few scratches here and there. And some of the parts where the print didn't turn out great. And then these wrist parts turned out pretty good, actually. Sanded them a little bit, and then a bunch of coats of paint. I did a little bit of weathering on those. So those will just glue on here. Like that. Alright, here we are. So I did this leg already. I need to touch up the black paint, so ignore that. But it was really pretty easy. I dremeled it all down around here to make it like the ankle, or this part actually the same width, so the cord wouldn't bulge out. You still see like on the ankle it bulges out a little bit, and it comes up on the thigh or on the calf, so it really doesn't look like a dremeled any away. The back's a little rough, but I did manage to do it in a way that I got to keep that swivel right there and the cord stays in place. I just did that by, so I'd wrap the top part. To wrap it, all I did was I did a line of glue, super glue all the way around here. And then glued that on like that and just went around. I did 2 layers on the top part and 1 layer on the bottom. And then after you glue that top part, you just pull it tight and just keep going around the leg, just wrapping the leg. And I would do like dabs of glue here on the front and dabs of glue on the back so that it would just hold in place. I could have dremeled that down, but I didn't want to go too low and have to repaint anything or anything like that, because this top part's gonna be covered, so that's not a big deal. At the ends, I just tuck it up underneath the other part. I'll probably put some glue in there and tuck that. All right, so I'm gonna do the other leg, and then I'll probably put the lower piece together. All right. So, as you can tell, I put it completely together and forgot to film. But here's the finished product. Now, I wanted to go over some parts. So I think where the video left off, I put these wraps on the legs. So what I ended up doing, the wraps weren't going on as well as I wish they would have. So I end up dremeling down that section of his heel, I guess his heel, so that the wraps would wrap around a little bit better. So it turned out pretty good after I dremeled that down, and then I still kept that articulation down there. So everything worked out there. Glued everything back together. The skirt piece turned out pretty good. It's pretty well hidden, so I mean, it doesn't match the colors up here perfect, but it's hidden enough that's not really noticeable. I end up melting these 2 pieces together just with an old soldering iron, and you can see there's still kind of a gap forming, so if I ever mess with this again, I might take it apart and redo that. I wanted to go over the hair real quick. I know I kind of skipped over that in the video. So as you can see with the Leia, it's just the same ponytail. The top part of the hair is just the front part of her hair. So I took my extra Leia and dremeled down the head until I just had the hair piece. You can see where it swooshes right there. It kind of matches right there. So I just dremeled it down until I just had the hair piece, and then just stretched out and glued it there. So I mean, it was just kind of a lot of messing around with it until I got something I liked. I had to 3D print this chest armor a couple of times. I broke it last time. I think I cured it for too long. But in the end, I liked the way it turned out. with the neck covering it. The neck looks a little squat because there's not very much neck there. But yeah, he still has all his articulation. That one kind of gets stuck a little bit. I think this raised up a little bit when I glued it. This one goes up fine. I think this one, if I pushed really hard, I could probably get it. Yeah, I could go under there. But it's kind of scratching that up. But luckily it's weathered, so all that goes up. The sculpt didn't really get in the way at all. And it doesn't chip or anything. Wrist still moves and swivels around. These hands, I end up gluing these fingers together just so he can hold the lightsaber a little bit better. But yeah, he kicks all the way out. Can't quite get the splits. Oh, maybe. And then goes forward and back. Same as regular Zeb. He does have a little bit of a trouble standing because I took those knees down too far. So they kind of don't really lock very well. But I mean, he'll stand. You just got to kind of mess with it a little bit to get him to stand there. Like that. This is the Cal lightsaber from the deluxe GameStop one. I think it came with green blades. I just popped in some blue blades. And it just clips in like that. So it looks pretty good. I had to heat up his hands to kind of squeeze them down a little bit. All I did was use a hair dryer to heat them up and then squeezed them and then ran some cold water over them and they would stay like that. Hope you liked the video. If you have any questions, let me know below and I'll try to answer them. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I have a bunch of pictures up there. I'll probably run through some right here. But hopefully this helps y'all if you want to make one. And thanks for watching.